Now in this edition we'll be looking at another title from Hong Kong director Wang. His film Chan is Missing joined the collection last May as Spine 1124 and was a black and white feature from 1982. With Dim Sum A Little Bit of Heart, it's from 1985 and tells of a Chinese immigrant widow who faces the new year with apprehension after it was foretold that it would be the year she would die. Director Wang says his favourite image in Dim Sum is the sight of the shoes left outside the living room door in the Tam household in San Francisco's Chinatown. They are Western shoes taken off as the characters enter a home that is still run according to Chinese values by old Mrs. Tam, a sweet widow with a strong but quietly concealed will. Now after the success of Chan is Missing, also set in Chinatown, his first slice of life about Chinese Americans, Wang was looking for another story, and when he saw some shoes left outside a Chinese home, he knew he had his viewpoint and only had to create his characters. A 60s woman whose husband is dead and whose children have left home all except for the youngest daughter, Geraldine Tam, played by Laureen Chu, the daughter who says she wants to get married but feels she should stay with her mother, and Uncle Tam, Victor Wang, a jolly, worldly bartender who would marry Mrs. Tam if Geraldine would only just get out of the way. These three characters dance a subtle and a little emotional ballet during the film, and we gradually become aware of their true motives. Mrs. Tam is given to sadly shaking her head and bemoaning the fact that her daughter is 30 and still single. But there are clues that she enjoys the fact that Geraldine has stayed at home with her, for instance. That way she will not have to deal with Uncle Tam, who, for that matter, may only be paying lip service to his desire to marry her. Meanwhile, Geraldine has a boyfriend in Los Angeles who has been waiting patiently to marry her, and perhaps Geraldine uses her mother as an excuse to avoid the idea of marriage. Now what's remarkable is the way Wang deals with this complex set of emotions in a movie that essentially is a comedy. Some of the scenes in Dim Sum are as quietly funny as anything I've seen this year, especially Mrs. Tam's birthday party, a long conversation she has over the back fence with a neighbour, and the way Uncle Tam effortlessly mixes his Chinese wisdom with the lessons he's learnt as a bartender. Now the movie is not heavily plotted, and that's good, very reminiscent of Yasujiro Ozu for instance, as a heavy hand would spoil this fragile material. Wang's camera enters quietly and observes as his characters lead their lives, trying to find a compromise between too much loneliness and too much risk. And in the end everyone is more or less happy and more or less sad, and in this movie that's quite satisfactory. Dim Sum both represents and plays out on its surface a series of differences between Chinese and American styles, lifestyles, cultural styles and their sets of values, in a manner similar in feel and intelligence to the great American comedies of the 1930s and 40s by Frank Capra, Leo McCarey or Preston Sturges. Wang at no point, though, lays down a rigid opposition between these two poles. Rather, he carefully grades markers of in-betweenness. Some Chinese are more American than others, some characters resist inclusion into the American way of life, succeeding or failing in their resistance, and others aspire to it, and likewise they succeed or fail. Now the film milks its cleverest and most poignant effects from the attempt to understand the play and balance in any given action or reaction, gesture or affection. Now Miss Tam might at first seem to be the most naturally Chinese of all, but we are rather told later that she's Chinese when she wants to be, in order to get what she wants, which is a rather different game. Auntie May is fully converted to Dynasty on TV. Uncle Tam, played by the brilliant comic actor Victor Wang, adores American cinema and American women alike, but bemoans the loss of the most exquisite Chinese recipes traditionally handed down from mother to daughter, and even the most entirely westernized teenagers here can hardly get into a game of mahjong. Wang's special interest in the Chinese-American comparison centres on the question of emotions and their expression, the dim sum or the little bit of heart of the title. Now the American ideal of family life, as learned by Uncle Tam from his ecstatic childhood memory of Capra's You Can't Take It With You from 1938, is that of people laughing and hugging each other and loving each other. The Chinese are portrayed by Wang as by inclination less open, but Mrs. Tam provides the extreme to this. But here too, the film yields its richest and most telling moments from the slight shifts and the changes along this sliding scale of emotional expressiveness, such, for instance, as the scene in which Julia lets go of her grief over her mother's death. Now the cast in Dim Sum A Little Bit of Heart consists of Lauren Chu as Geraldine Tam, Kim Chu as Mrs. Tam, Victor Wang as Uncle Tam, Ida F.O. Chung as Auntie May, Cora Mayo as Julia, John Nishio as Richard, Amy Hill as Amy Tam, Keith Choi as Kevin Tam, Elsa Cruz Pearson as Eliza, Helen Chu as Linda Tam, and Jared Chu as Baby Tam. And as you can see, there are quite a lot from the Chu family in there, including mother and daughter. The disc is a standard Blu-ray with the following special features. There's a high-definition digital master of a new director's cut of the film, featuring previously unseen footage, supervised by Wang with uncompressed mono soundtrack. A new conversation between Wang and the filmmaker and film scholar Arthur Dong. Interview with actor Lauren Chu from 2004. And an essay by scholar Brian Hu. And new cover art is by Josh Cochran. Soulfully performed by an ensemble cast including real-life mother and daughter Kim and Lauren Chu, Dim Sum A Little Bit of Heart is Wang's second entry into the collection. It's a running time of 84 minutes and it's in a widescreen aspect ratio, and it releases on Tuesday the 15th of August as Spine 1188. Well, that's this week's release. Next week we have the singular vision of Swedish director Bo Widerberg with a set of 4 of his films entitled Bo Widerberg's New Swedish Cinema. Also, I'd like to mention that I'm working on a more detailed look at the existing set of films from Jacques Tati, already in the collection, and that might be coming up in September. So, until next week from me, it's goodbye, and above all, good Criterion viewing.